Think back to the last time your smartphone ran a massive software update while you were fast asleep in your bed. You closed your eyes with everything working exactly the way you liked it, but when you woke up, the entire interface had completely changed. The apps were moved around, the privacy rules were entirely rewritten, and you had absolutely zero say in the matter. Nobody physically broke into your house or held a weapon to your head. Yet the system you completely rely on was radically altered overnight. That is exactly what is going to happen to our entire civilization, exactly 1 second after the American empire finally hits the ground. The global elites aren't going to send foreign tanks crashing through your front door. They are just going to push a digital button. Today, I'm going to show you the chilling, fully built invisible prison that is just waiting for the ultimate collapse to be officially switched on. You know, I've spent years looking behind the curtain of what we call the system, and something has always kept me awake at night. We have this crazy habit of thinking the end of the world, or at least the end of our freedom, will arrive with a massive bang, rockets in the sky, and troops marching down our streets. But the raw truth, my friend, is actually much quieter and because of that, infinitely more terrifying than any Hollywood movie. Why would anyone waste trillions of dollars on a physical war when they can just pull the plug on the planet's financial engine? When America's economy finally grinds to a halt, the entire global clock is going to stop ticking in that exact same second. We are looking at a silent takedown that no radar will ever catch. I'm not talking about a temporary recession that you hear about on the evening news and then forget about the next day. I am talking about an absolute instant freeze of the entire global supply chain that currently keeps you and your family alive. Picture this scenario for a second. Suddenly, massive cargo ships stop docking at our ports. Delivery trucks turn off their engines and grocery store shelves empty out at lightning speed. If you think back just a few years, you'll remember exactly what happened when a simple rumor on the news caused people to physically fight over toilet paper. It doesn't take much to push society over the edge when the illusion of safety shatters. Now take that exact same panic, multiply it by 100, and replace the toilet paper with food, clean water, and basic medicine. Basic human civility, that nice little mask we all wear every single day, really only lasts as long as our stomachs are full of food. The minute you take away that basic security, we drop right back to square one in a matter of hours, and it gets incredibly ugly. It is exactly at this point of blind, irrational desperation that the ultimate trump card I've been tracking will be played right in front of us. Because at that moment, people won't be marching in the streets demanding liberty. They will be begging on their knees for any crumb of order. That is exactly when the global organizations, the ones constantly holding those boring closed-door meetings, will suddenly step up to take total control of the narrative. They are going to broadcast across every screen, declaring an unprecedented worldwide state of emergency, complete with shiny graphs and highly paid experts validating every word. With soft, protective voices, they will explain that the situation has simply outgrown local governments and that drastic measures must be taken to save us all. It is the oldest and most effective trick in the playbook. You let the chaos burn just enough so you can sell the perfect, unquestionable solution. Nobody questions the firefighter who shows up to put out the blaze, even if he brought the matches. Those national borders we think are so incredibly secure and beautifully drawn on our maps are going to melt away like ice on a hot summer day. And listen, it won't be because of an armed invasion or foreign troops storming the beaches, but out of pure, basic daily survival. Entire nations will eagerly surrender their own sovereignty because they will be absolutely desperate for a plate of food and the logistics only a centralized power can provide. It is the perfect storm being orchestrated quietly right under our noses, while the vast majority of the population just hits the snooze button, We are going to hand over the keys to the kingdom willingly, thinking we are making the smartest choice possible. They will centralize the distribution of absolutely everything that keeps you breathing, positioning themselves as the ultimate saviors of a collapse they allowed to happen. But, of course, this amazing humanitarian help isn't going to just fall from the sky for free, without a massive, heavy string attached to the package. In order for you to access this life-saving safety net and get milk for your kids, they are going to require one very simple, seemingly harmless little thing. They will just need a tiny bit of proof that you are exactly who you claim to be, which inevitably leads us right into a much darker kind of checkpoint. When the dust settles and you finally reach that distribution center to grab your rations, the friendly smile on the clerk's face is going to vanish instantly. They will look at you with this chilling, highly trained bureaucratic coldness, politely explaining that resources are incredibly scarce and they must prevent rampant fraud. We have plenty of supplies, my friend, but we absolutely need to know exactly who you are to stop the looters, they will say with perfect calm. At a quick glance, this sounds completely fair and incredibly reasonable during the absolute peak of a global panic, right? I mean, who in their right mind would dare to argue against a perfectly organized system right in the middle of total societal chaos? It is precisely through this highly seductive excuse of protecting the community that they will effortlessly shove universal digital identity right down our throats. And look, this isn't some crazy tinfoil hat conspiracy theory I cooked up in my basement. This exact scenario is unfolding right now in luxurious European economic forums. The guys in expensive suits are already actively testing and legally approving these mandatory digital wallets, while we are completely distracted by dancing videos on our phones. Their ultimate, undeniable goal is to completely wipe out any physical paper documents that you could easily hide, accidentally tear, or cleverly fake. Everything that defines who you truly are in the real world, from your confidential medical records to your simple utility bills, will be securely tied into one massive database. If you aren't properly registered and shining bright green in this shiny new global system, you simply cease to exist to the official modern world. You essentially become a ghost, wandering around without a trace in a society that claims to be incredibly hyper-connected and advanced. Just try to imagine the absolute nightmare of arriving at a major airport today, trying to board an international flight and realizing you left your passport on the kitchen counter. You wouldn't even make it past the very first glass security gate, and the armed guards would immediately look at you like you were a dangerous criminal. Well, hold on to that deeply uncomfortable feeling, because very soon, the automatic glass doors at your local neighborhood grocery store are going to operate with that exact same ruthless logic. If the overhead scanner cannot perfectly read your facial biometrics or verify your iris in a split second, those sliding doors simply will not open for you. You will become a literal walking phantom, staring hungrily through the glass at a civilized world that aggressively refuses to acknowledge your physical existence. It is an incredibly isolating, terrifying reality hiding right behind the beautiful promise of seamless technological convenience. The absolute genius of these architects is almost surreal, because they won't ever need to put a gun to your head to force you into their sprawling network. Their masterstroke is to quietly trap you through sheer exhaustion and the extreme, undeniable convenience of daily life, making you practically beg to be scanned on the street. Remember when we all thought it was super creepy to unlock our phones with our faces, and today we get frustrated if we actually have to type a boring 4-digit password? We are willingly handing over our precious freedom and deepest privacy on a silver platter in tiny little doses, just so we don't have to wait in a long line at the bank. The harsh, undeniable reality is that we are the ones eagerly building the thick iron bars of this invisible prison with our own daily screen taps. We are cheerfully trading our inherent human sovereignty for a slightly faster checkout process at the local coffee shop. Without your unified identity flashing a bright green light of approval on their servers, you won't even be able to buy basic fever medicine for your child or access the internet. Your entire life suddenly becomes a highly vulnerable digital file floating in the cloud, ready to be deleted, suspended, or heavily restricted by a faceless bureaucrat an ocean away. This is the ultimate tool of absolute control, perfectly disguised as essential humanitarian protection, eagerly sold by the evening news as the greatest saving innovation of our century. The most bizarre part of this entire theatre is that the vast majority of the population will give it a standing ovation, crying tears of joy because they think they found a safe harbor. It will look exactly like a beautiful dream of peace and social order, right up until the heavy curtain drops and the true nightmare is revealed. The trap is beautifully decorated, making the prisoners fall deeply in love with the very walls that hold them captive. But simply having your handsome face scanned and your full name neatly filed away in a massive global server is really just the front doorknob to a much deeper abyss. What good does it actually do for the ruling government to know exactly where you sleep if they cannot actively monitor and control every single penny that passes through your sweaty hands? The oppressive system desperately needs a much shorter, tighter leash to guarantee that you never step out of line once the food finally returns to the grocery store shelves. It is precisely for this brutal, calculated reason that the crumpled paper money you currently guard so carefully in your leather wallet is officially living on borrowed time. The way you buy a simple loaf of bread is about to be radically, permanently altered in a way that gives them total power over your survival. Look, holding a crisp $20 bill in your hand gives you a strangely comforting feeling of total independence, doesn't it? We grew up believing that as long as we have some cash stuffed under the mattress, we can always buy our way out of a tight spot. But here is the terrifying reality that the guys in the custom-tailored suits don't want you to fully grasp just yet. That crumpled paper money you guard so fiercely is already walking on death row, quietly waiting for its final execution date. When the global emergency kicks into high gear, physical cash will simply evaporate overnight, branded as a dirty, inefficient relic of the past. It will be seamlessly replaced by a shiny, brand-new central bank digital currency, and that is exactly where the real trap snaps shut. Now hold your horses before you start thinking this is just like Bitcoin or some cool, decentralized crypto revolution that frees the masses. It is the exact, horrifying opposite of financial freedom, brilliantly dressed up in the sleek, modern disguise of ultimate technological convenience. A CBDC is entirely programmable money, meaning the central bank writes the exact digital code dictating exactly how, when, and where that dollar works. They hold the master key to the incredibly complex server where your life savings sit, and you are just a temporary guest in their system. You won't actually own your hard-earned salary anymore. You will merely be granted conditional permission to use it under their strict supervision. It's an absolute financial cage being quietly built right in front of us, brick by digital brick, while everyone is looking the other way. Think about it exactly like one of those restrictive store gift cards you get for your birthday from an aunt who doesn't really know you well. You might have $50 sitting on that piece of plastic, but the store dictates that you can only spend it there, under their specific rules. Now take that incredibly frustrating concept and apply it to every single penny you earn from your grueling 40-hour work week. The government could literally program an expiration date right onto your paycheck, forcing you to spend your money before Friday to artificially stimulate the economy. If you try to save for a rainy day or pull your money out of the grid, the system simply deletes your balance with a single keystroke. Your financial independence is completely wiped off the board in the blink of an eye, leaving you entirely at the mercy of the programmers. And buddy, it gets significantly darker when you realize this programmable currency is directly tied to your everyday choices and your personal beliefs. Let's say the global algorithm decides you've already purchased too much red meat this month and you urgently need to lower your carbon footprint. You walk into the grocery store, scan your digital wallet at the register, and the system flat out rejects the transaction with a cold, red error screen. Or worse, imagine you posted a really strong, controversial opinion online, criticizing the new global leadership and their oppressive emergency mandates. Suddenly, your digital wallet is temporarily frozen for investigation, and you literally cannot buy a gallon of gas to drive your kids to school. Your money is weaponized against your own free will, forcing you to completely comply with the official narrative just to keep the lights on. When you take a step back and really look at the sheer, overwhelming magnitude of this control grid, an ancient chill runs right down your spine. Thousands of years ago, a solitary prophet exiled on a rocky island saw this exact, terrifying financial architecture forming in the distant future. He explicitly warned humanity about a beastly system so airtight, so deeply embedded in daily life, that absolutely no one could buy or sell outside of it. For centuries, brilliant scholars scratched their heads, wondering how a single human government could physically control every transaction on the entire planet. Well, the answer isn't a massive army of accountants or physical military blockades. The answer is a centralized, heavily programmed digital currency. The ancient prophecies aren't just spooky stories anymore. They are literally the blueprints of the software currently being installed on global servers. You are probably asking yourself why on earth any sane, freedom-loving human being would ever voluntarily sign up for such an obvious financial prison. It seems completely irrational that billions of people would just hand over their absolute financial sovereignty without putting up a massive, violent fight. But the architects of this system understand human psychology better than we understand ourselves. And they know exactly how to bait the trap perfectly. They aren't going to roll out this digital currency with terrifying threats of violence. They are going to wrap it in a shiny, irresistible bow. When the middle class is completely wiped out by the collapse and desperate for a lifeline, the system will casually toss out a golden lifesaver. And all it will take to get your hands on that sweet, effortless government money is eagerly accepting their shiny new terms of service. When the dust from the massive economic collapse finally settles, you are going to see millions of hard-working folks staring straight into an absolute abyss. We're talking about proud, independent people who lost their jobs, their pensions, and their life savings in the blink of an eye, completely desperate to feed their families. Now, if the global government just marched in and aggressively demanded everyone hand over their freedom, there would be a massive, violent uprising in the streets. So, how do you convince a fiercely rebellious population to willingly walk right into a digital financial cage without firing a single shot? You don't threaten them with a terrifying stick. You gently lure them in with the biggest, sweetest carrot the world has ever seen. Let me give you a really simple analogy that perfectly explains the dark underlying psychology behind this massive global maneuver. If you take a fiercely independent wild animal and start leaving a bowl of free, delicious kibble on your back porch every single day, something tragic happens. Within a few short weeks, that magnificent creature completely forgets how to hunt for itself in the wild, losing its natural survival instincts entirely. It becomes totally, hopelessly dependent on you to keep its belly full, trading its wild freedom for a comfortable, guaranteed meal. Universal basic income is exactly that free bowl of kibble, perfectly formulated to domesticate the human race during a time of extreme, engineered starvation. On the surface, the concept of a universal basic income sounds like a beautiful, compassionate, utopian dream, doesn't it? The talking heads on the evening news will sell it as the ultimate humanitarian rescue package, promising a guaranteed monthly digital deposit just for breathing. They will tell you that extreme poverty is finally eradicated and that the caring global state is stepping up to take care of its vulnerable citizens. Man, it's going to sound so incredibly tempting when your bank account is at absolute zero and the mortgage is 3 months overdue. But my grandfather used to say there is absolutely no such thing as a free lunch, and the hidden price tag on this one is your absolute sovereignty. The catch is beautifully hidden in the fine print of the terms and conditions that nobody ever bothers to actually sit down and read. To receive your desperately needed monthly survival ration, you won't be handed physical cash or a traditional paper check that you can hide under your mattress. You will be strictly required to download the official mandatory global wallet app and perfectly sync it with your brand new biometric digital identity. You are essentially trading your total financial anonymity and personal freedom for a digital allowance that barely keeps your head above the water. The cheese looks absolutely delicious from the outside, but the exact second you take a bite, the heavy steel bar of the Mousetrap violently snaps shut. Once you accept that first digital deposit, a subtle but incredibly powerful psychological shift happens deep inside your mind. You simply do not bite the hand that is literally putting food on your family's dinner table, no matter how oppressive that hand eventually becomes. The fierce, rebellious spirit that once defined free nations will be completely sedated, put into a deep sleep by the comfortable drip of guaranteed government money. People will stop asking hard questions and stop fighting back, terrified that making waves might cause their digital lifeline to be suddenly cut off. It is the ultimate pacifier, masterfully designed to keep the masses quiet, docile, and perfectly compliant, while the invisible prison walls are fully erected around them. So practically overnight, you have an entire global population hooked on this digital life support, completely dependent on the system for their daily bread. The architects of this control grid will have billions of people exactly where they want them, incredibly comfortable, deeply fearful of losing their benefits, and totally compliant. But here is the dangerous thing about being completely dependent on someone else's charity. They eventually get to dictate the strict rules of the house. Once everyone is safely locked inside the digital wallet ecosystem, the free money will suddenly come with a brand new set of behavioral expectations. And to violently enforce those new rules, the system won't need to deploy armed police officers. It will just use the person living right next door to you. Once everyone is completely hooked on that digital lifeline, the real nature of the trap finally reveals itself. It is a lot like moving into a highly restricted neighborhood. First you get the beautiful house, and then you get the insane rule book. The global state isn't just going to hand out free money without demanding absolute, unquestioning loyalty in return. They will quietly introduce a universal social credit score, perfectly integrated into your digital wallet and biometric ID. Suddenly, your inherent worth as a human being is reduced to a constantly fluctuating digital number on a screen. Good citizens get rewarded with extra perks, while the disobedient ones are systematically pushed to the very margins of society. To really wrap your head around this, just think about the last time you grabbed a ride using an app. You know perfectly well that the driver is secretly rating your behavior, and if your passenger score drops too low, nobody will pick you up. Now take that exact same rating concept and apply it ruthlessly to your entire physical and digital existence. If your social score dips below a certain invisible threshold, the doors of polite society simply slam shut in your face. It is an incredibly brilliant, terrifying way to enforce complete obedience without ever having to fire a single physical bullet. You are policed by your own desperate need to maintain a high enough score just to comfortably survive the week. But here is the truly sinister part. This score won't be based on actual violent crimes like robbery or assault. It will be entirely based on your ideological compliance and whether you blindly swallow the official global narrative. If you happen to attend an unapproved underground church, or if you share a video questioning the new authorities, you are heavily penalized. The algorithm doesn't care about your constitutional rights. It only cares that you stepped completely out of the designated line. Your score immediately plummets, permanently staining your permanent digital record for every single institution to clearly see. It forces everyone to aggressively self-censor their thoughts and words, creating a terrifying culture of absolute deafening silence. The punishments for having a low social credit score are incredibly swift, completely invisible, and utterly devastating to your daily routine. There is no fair trial, no sympathetic jury of your peers, and absolutely no human judge to hear your desperate appeal. You simply walk into the local grocery store, try to buy milk for your family, and your digital currency is abruptly declined. You might find that your digital ID suddenly blocks you from boarding a train or accessing your own medical records. The system effectively turns you into a total outcast in your own hometown, completely paralyzing your life without ever using handcuffs. It is a soft, silent tyranny that crushes your spirit by slowly taking away your basic ability to function. And the absolute scariest part of this entire setup isn't even the faceless government elites sitting in a distant office. It is the terrifying reality that your own friends and neighbors will become the most ruthless enforcers of this new digital law. In a desperate bid to boost their own social scores and secure better food rations, people will eagerly report each other. We will quickly devolve into a paranoid, hypervigilant society of snitches, where you cannot even trust the person living right next door. The beautiful bonds of community and family will be completely shattered, replaced by a cold, calculating game of absolute survival. You will constantly look over your shoulder, terrified that a simple, misplaced comment will cost you your livelihood. However, relying solely on human informants is still way too messy, incredibly slow, and inefficient for a perfect global dictatorship. People eventually get tired. They occasionally feel guilt, and they miss crucial details happening right in front of them. To truly lock down billions of citizens simultaneously, this beastly system desperately requires an unblinking, tireless eye watching everything at once. They need a synthetic mind capable of processing every single text message, financial transaction, and physical movement in real time without ever sleeping. The groundwork for this terrifying, omniscient observer has already been quietly laid out across our modern digital landscape, and once this ultimate technological overlord is fully plugged into the grid, the trap will be sealed forever. History shows that dictatorships usually fall because paying human spies is incredibly expensive and extremely flawed. But artificial intelligence completely changes the rules of the game forever. It never sleeps, it never takes a coffee break, and it certainly never feels a single drop of pity. It is the ultimate tireless watchdog that the ruthless tyrants of the past could only dream of having. Now, they really don't need a sneaky guy in a trench coat following you down the street. They just need a massive server farm, humming quietly in the dark, constantly processing every detail of your life. We already live in a crazy world where your smartphone knows you much better than your own mother does. You casually talk about buying a pair of shoes, and 5 minutes later, those exact same shoes magically pop up on your feed. It is a little bit spooky, right? But we usually just shrug it off as targeted advertising and keep scrolling. We'll take that exact same predictive technology and hand it straight over to a global government looking for total compliance. Suddenly, that brilliant algorithm isn't trying to sell you a pair of sneakers anymore. It is actively analyzing your daily habits to predict whether or not you are going to be a problem for the system. Just imagine an invisible, incredibly strict teacher standing at the front of a massive global classroom, watching every single student simultaneously. This advanced artificial intelligence will silently process every single digital purchase you make, every text message you send, and every GPS location you visit. It seamlessly connects the complex dots between your bank account, your social credit score, and your digital identity in real time. There is absolutely nowhere left to hide in a modern world where the very infrastructure around you is actively listening. It is a perfectly woven, inescapable digital spiderweb stretching across the globe. And the crazy part is, we are the ones who happily volunteered to walk right into it for the sake of convenience. The truly terrifying aspect is that this grid completely automates the punishment process, without any human intervention whatsoever. If the AI flags you for reading an unapproved news article online, it doesn't need to send a memo to a human supervisor. It simply communicates directly with your digital wallet and automatically deducts 50 points from your social credit score in a fraction of a second. You are instantly judged, found guilty, and heavily penalized by a cold, unfeeling string of computer code. It is an incredibly ruthless, hyper-efficient system of justice that never makes a mistake and never forgets. Empathy, grace, and human context have been entirely deleted from this new societal equation, leaving only raw, algorithmic enforcement. When you read the ancient texts about a system that sees everything and controls who gets to buy or sell, it finally makes perfect sense. The prophets from thousands of years ago couldn't possibly comprehend the concept of artificial intelligence, algorithms, or massive data centers. So they simply described a beast with many eyes, an inescapable global power that demanded total worship and absolute obedience. Today, we proudly call those many eyes surveillance cameras, smartphone microphones, and predictive artificial intelligence algorithms. The ancient, chilling blueprint is unfolding right on our modern digital screens with absolute, undeniable precision. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this dark, overarching infrastructure has been meticulously planned for centuries. But all of this incredibly advanced technology, from the digital wallets to the AI surveillance, is still just a cold machine sitting in the dark. A machine, no matter how powerful or globally connected, still desperately needs a charismatic face to proudly sell it to the masses. The starving, exhausted global population won't ever bow down to a glowing server rack in a hidden bunker. They will only bow down to a flesh and blood savior who steps up and promises to fix their broken world. All the digital chess pieces are now perfectly positioned on the board, just waiting for the Grandmaster to step out from the shadows. And when that ultimate magnetic leader finally takes the global stage to flip the switch, the greatest deception in human history will officially begin. We are currently standing right in the middle of a massive room, casually watching the fresh paint dry on the walls, completely unaware that the only exit door is shrinking by the minute. Everything we just talked about, the biometric identity, the programmable digital money, the artificial intelligence surveillance, already exists in isolated pieces today. The fall of America is merely the convenient pretext the system desperately needs to connect all these dark puzzle pieces at once. The Antichrist isn't going to kick down your door with a sword in his hand, demanding your worship. He is going to walk in with a sleek tablet, offering digital food for your hungry children in exchange for your absolute, unquestioning loyalty. The absolute worst thing you can do right now is hit the snooze button and pretend this prophetic reality isn't unfolding right in your own backyard. It is time to radically change the way you live, break free from the matrix of distractions, and start preparing your family physically, mentally, and spiritually. I want you to take a hard look at your own smartphone and the way you buy your groceries today. Which of these 6 steps do you honestly feel is already the most advanced in your own city? Is it the vanishing physical cash, the biometric facial scans, or the silent social censorship? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments down below, because I want to see exactly how close you think we really are to the finish line. The rest of the world is going to accept this global digital beast system with a massive smile, genuinely believing it is the ultimate progress that will save humanity from the chaos. If you absolutely refuse to be dragged down by this incredible global illusion, and if you want to keep your eyes wide open to the real, undeniable truths of Bible prophecy, you need to hit that subscribe button for the Hidden channel right now. Turn on all your notifications, because we are going to keep shining a bright, uncomfortable light into these dark, hidden corridors.